This piece discusses suicide and suicidal ideation, and some people might find it disturbing. If you or someone you know is suicidal, please contact your physician, go to your local emergency room, or call the suicide prevention hotline in your country. For the United States, the numbers are as follows: the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 800-273-TALK or 8255, or message the Crisis Text Line at 741-741. Both programs provide free, confidential support 24/7.
My name is Michael Gilberg. I live in Westchester County, New York, and I'm a special education attorney representing children in special education who are seeking, the families are seeking legal services because their child is not getting the appropriate services, either under the Individuals with Disability with Education Act, IDEA, or Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act as required by law for children with special needs. I grew up with what's called undiagnosed Asperger syndrome, not being diagnosed until I was 18. So I went through school not getting what they would call an appropriate education. I was always bright, but never got the services I was entitled to. And if not for my mother's advocacy, who knows? So I've devoted my life to helping other children avoid some of those challenges, but it's still a challenge often in how I deal with people. Sometimes reading social interaction. It still causes me very often tremendous anxiety, tremendous stress. I get very anxious about certain things. I can sometimes, and I've had to work on it, blow up and lose my temper if someone pushes me the wrong way or says the wrong thing. It makes me very perseverative, where I perseverate on a certain topic and get very obsessive and can't let go of something. It still affects sometimes reading social situations if I maybe have a social situation that I misread. We're in a world in autism where I think very often people say, would you want to cure it? And it's not about curing it. It's about trying to live with it and adapt it. I think what I'd rather change is people's understanding and have certain people understand how not to push me. Don't say things that are going to trigger me or trigger others with autism. I love that I'm in a position where I can make a difference in the lives of children, and that my parents tell me, you've changed my child's life for the better. Because of you, my child has a future. Mother once told me, because of you, my child has an opportunity. Very often there are cases where kids don't belong in the public school and the parents have to go to a private placement and the school district doesn't want to pay. It's my job to get the school district to pay. Not every child can be educated in the public school, or to make a program that would be appropriate for a child in the public school will cost more money than it makes it prohibitive. Then you need to send them to a private placement, but school districts don't want to pay for that. And parents often have a very different definition than school districts of what is appropriate. I think improved understanding, improved education, improved teaching people what actually is and is not correct about disability. I've had school districts say, well, this kid doesn't really have challenges, and they only look at what's going on externally, not what's going on internally, where the kid is struggling inside, and then the kid is mentally is having mental health issues. They're depressed. Very often you have kids who are suicidal, and the school is surprised when the kid actually thinks about committing suicide, or that something happens where the kid does kill himself. I've seen cases, I fortunately haven't had a client kill themselves, but I've had cases where kids have threatened suicide and the district doesn't take them seriously, and there have been attempts. Listen to the child. Don't just assume you know what's going on. Listen, take the child at their word. Don't just dismiss their thoughts and feelings. Listen to them. Really listen to what they're trying to tell you and what they're saying is going on with them. Don't just dismiss it as no big deal. I've had many cases where people have said, oh, the child's just looking for attention. He's not really going to try and kill himself. And then the child tries to kill himself. Or cases where they're like, oh, he's just looking for attention. He's not really upset. They always say it's attention seeking. It's not that the child really is. The child could control his behavior. He's choosing not to, and not looking at why the child is behaving that way. I think that there's a lack of understanding, especially by school personnel, because unfortunately, public education in many cases is about the money, and spending money to provide services to the child costs money and they don't look at the long-term the effects of A, this child's happiness, what's best for the child, and B, that it's better for society to not have to pay for it long term, the child long term. If you give the child independence, it's the whole teach a kid man to fish versus give a man a fish. You can give the child a fish for the rest of his life, or you can teach him to fish and be self-sufficient for the rest of his life. Schools very often focus on what I call the giving of fish, not the teaching of fish. Generally, I contact the school district attorney, explain what the issues are, and then see where the parents, what the school district's position is. And in an ideal world, I would negotiate with the school district attorney to try to come to some sort of agreement. If we don't, we then file for what's called a due process hearing, go before a hearing officer who's like a judge. And it's like any other legal proceeding. We make our case, they make their case. And then, the judge determines who wins, so to speak. We're like the prosecutors generally. We're prosecuting the school for not giving the child what's known as a free and appropriate public education, which is required by law. My job is to make sure the school districts are giving them what they're entitled to. And sometimes I have to tell parents that you're not entitled to something you want. We always say child is not entitled to the best education. They're not entitled to perfect, but they're entitled to appropriate. Someone I know used to say, you're not entitled to a Cadillac, but you're also not entitled to a Ford Pinto. You're entitled to a nice, reliable Chevy. And the debate is, what is the meaning of the word appropriate? What you think is an appropriate education and what I think might not be the same thing. And that's the problem. The word appropriate is a very subjective word. Everybody has a different definition of what appropriate means. It changes for each student. The key word is individual. Everything is individualized. Everything has to be individualized to meet the child's individual needs. And I serve on the New York State Autism Advisory Board. There's a state advisory board for autism policy made up of professionals and self-advocates. I serve on that. I serve on my county's newly created Disability Commission. I serve on the self-advocate board of the Autism Society, which is one of the largest autism organizations nationally. Many others, too many to name sometimes. On the state board, one thing we're working on is teaching people around the state how to be more tolerant of autism and how to understand autism better, because there's so much lack of understanding of autism in this world. Well, I think the big thing in the autism world, we always say, is it's what's known as neurodiversity, the idea that you want people to understand there's no right way of thinking. Everybody's brain works differently, and we need people to be more tolerant of those with different ways of thinking. I've had many cases where people have said to me, I've seen people say, well, this person should learn to be normal. I've had people tell me, you should be this way, this way. It's my job to teach you how to behave. I had somebody who I was friends with, who told me, I don't think you're acceptable. It's my job to teach you how to behave. And there's no necessarily right way to behave, or we all are different people. I mean, there's certain societal expectations we all have to live with, but we're all individuals. We're all entitled to, I guess, live life our own way, if that makes sense. I think there is that bias with disability. People often treat a lot of people with disabilities like they're less than or they're inferior. I know a guy in a wheelchair who has had people yell in his face and he has to respond, I'm not deaf, I'm in a wheelchair. And they yell in his face like he's deaf because they somehow think being in a wheelchair makes him slower intellectually or have some sort of hearing impairment that he doesn't have. And so there is that bias. I've had people say to me, but you don't look autistic. There's no such thing as looking autistic. Everybody is still ultimately an individual, but people make assumptions of what you can or can't do because of a disability. And it's not just true of autism, it's true of all disabilities. Like I said, not every blind person is the same. Not every deaf person, people make these mistakes all the time thinking, oh, this person's blind, but they must read Braille. I know a lot of blind people who don't read Braille because they're not blind, they're visually impaired. They have some sight, or for whatever reason, they don't read Braille. And the technology has changed that a lot of them blind people I know use text to speech because technology has created a new situation, a new ability to do these things. We still need human understanding, but it's definitely helped with certain disabilities. I think particularly for the blind community, technology has been a big help. And I guess for the deaf community, I think for things that are more invisible, it's harder. The biggest thing people with autism are seeking is acceptance. We say in the autism world, we've gotten past the need for awareness. We're now at acceptance. Everybody's aware of autism. It's now about acceptance. Awareness is yesterday. Today is acceptance.